Hi guys, welcome to the Lifestyle Design Secrets podcast. I'm your host Amy, and we're going to be covering conversations about fitness, nutrition, mindset, and a whole lot more. Enjoy! Hi everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I have Paula Moore back with me. She is back.
Round two, ding, ding, ding.
Round two, 3 weeks later. And just before we dive into our chat, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone for your feedback so far, because it's been amazing. And I also wanted to let you know that I am working on the audio. Today we're trying our media room, which is where Paula and I are currently sat. So hopefully the acoustics might be a bit softer, and we'll try not to laugh so hard.
I can't promise anything.
That we break everyone's ears with the microphone. Which I've had to just go and dig out of Braxton's bedroom because apparently I bought a gaming mic.
Yeah.
So that's been a hit. Cool. Yeah. Family microphone. Right, so we're here today because Paula and I actually got together and did a nutrition consultation 3 weeks ago after the last podcast. Yeah. And so I'm going to run through a few bits and pieces today. Starter, I'm just going to ask Paula why we ended up doing that, and then I'm going to run through a few of her quotes over the last 3 weeks. They've been quite good. I just think it's a really, really good and raw insight into, I think it's been a learning experience for both of us.
Oh, for sure.
That I don't know what people don't know, and sometimes even when you think you know all the things, there can be missing aspects. So to kick us off, Paula, I thought I had a general idea, but clearly not.
Yeah, that sums it up pretty well. I have worked, I've been friends with Amy, and I've had a bit to do with Amy over, a few years now.
3 years?
Yeah, a few years. And so we've had quite a few conversations on food and on different aspects of nutrition. And I think this is worth sharing as well, is that there's been a lot of times that you've said things and I've thought, oh yes, I know that. I know that, and we've had a discussion about it. But there's also been times that you've said things and I've gone, but in my mind I'm like, I didn't know that.
Non-smart.
I didn't say that. And I think that is really interesting for me, because I sort of thought that I had got past that stage of sometimes pretending to know things that I didn't know, and I think with nutrition, it is such a massive topic. And when you were dropping in these little bombs that I thought, I actually didn't know that, yeah. Or I don't know the reason why you've said that. I think that was one of the bigger things. I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know the why. I don't know the why. And I think that is what led me to come to you, is that I thought, I have spent the last kind of 2 or 3 years really trying to get healthier and really working on my fitness and working on my headspace to do with fitness and food. And so as part of that, as you know, I was doing a challenge that was run by a guy in the Gold Coast. And so he gave us all of the menus, and then he gave us the exercises. Yeah. And so when I did that, it worked. It gave me the desired result. Yeah. And so in my mind, I'm like, I've cracked it. I've cracked
everything.
But the problem is that if you deviated from those menus, I didn't know why the menus worked. And so
I think that's similar with so many things.
Yeah. So I just thought, well, if I just stick with those menus, then I'm fine.
I'll be fine.
But actually, without knowing the underneath why, then you sort of have this fear of deviating outside of that, because you don't really know why it was working. Mm-hmm. You don't know why it was working. Yeah. And I also knew that there were some elements of the menus that didn't sit right with me too, because there were...
What was the dessert you told me about? The Biscoff dessert?
Yeah, Biscoff. Biscoff protein cookie dough.
Nice.
So that has a Biscoff spread in it, which is like a basic hazelnut chocolate.
Nutella?
Basically like Nutella. And then you crumbled some Biscoff cookies on the top as well. So it didn't end there. And there's maple syrup in it, almond milk in it, and protein powder in it, and some sugar-free chocolate chips.
Yeah.
And so you mixed it all up and it was a delicious
yummy dessert.
Yummy dessert, but every time I made it, I thought, this is delicious, but I know that there are things in these ingredients that don't sit right with me. So, and it's funny how you can kind of push that to the side when you have a goal, I guess.
You have a goal and, this authority told me that this is the dessert I should eat.
Exactly. And I had this goal and I thought, this is, I can still eat some of these things that normally I wouldn't eat and still get, the desired result, because I was actually feeling pretty good. My energy was good. I felt like I was at a really good body weight.
Yeah.
So I was getting the desired results. But also the problem that I came to understand when we did the consult was partly the reason that it was working as well was because of the intensity of the exercise I was doing. So it was the exercise and the food. So in winter, I want to take a little bit of a low-key approach to exercise. So I want to do more walking than potentially doing more weights.
Staying inside.
Yeah, and weights, so that was, I think, when the wheels started to fall off, was that I wanted to have a little bit more of a relaxed winter, but then the weight was creeping up and I couldn't really
understand.
I didn't understand what was going on.
So I think based on what you told me with that plan, the carbohydrates are probably set to a certain level that they would replenish your muscle glycogen if you were moving the amount that they wanted you to. Yeah.
So and so I guess I wanted to share that because that was my starting point really of my first big realizations about diet and exercise, that I could actually use a program and get my desired results. However, when I fell off that program, like when I started to do it my own way, I realized that I just didn't understand why it was working, and that was when I thought, wow, I've talked enough to Amy to know that you're a guru on this. So, as with anything, and this was another good realization for me, is if you've got pockets of information missing, if you're not where you want to be, that's where a coach and a mentor is the right way to go.
100%.
Someone who is where you want to be, go and ask them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a really good...
and it was a reminder to me as well, is that you can flounder in a space for a really long time and get frustrated and just have a real lack of knowledge and try and figure it out for yourself. Or you can go to somebody and have a personalised...
and shorten your timeline, hey?
Shorten the timeline.
And also just use their knowledge that they've spent years gathering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm always telling clients to do.
Yeah.
Which is why I didn't hesitate when I'd had enough of these kind of downloads that you would say things to me and I thought, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And so there were enough of them to sort of decide I need to engage with Amy. I need to take knowledge.
I think you hit on a really good point there as well. Lots of people cycle on and off things, and I do. Like, I change things up here and there, and I'm pretty loosey-goosey some weekends. But I think what's interesting is I don't really care what my body looks like, and people shouldn't pick me because I look the way I do. Mm-hmm. It's not about my body, it's about yours. But the keeping my health and fitness where it is for, coming on a decade now in a similar space, I think is something I'm proud of, but it says something about sustainability as well, rather than it's like I feel like some of the stuff, once you know it, it's like having the secrets.
Yes.
And you can have the weekends, you can have the holidays, and you can just manage life around that rather than going, if I don't eat this specific thing, it's all going to fall to places.
Yeah. It feels like having the knowledge that you've given me it does feel like those missing pieces of the puzzle, and I've been able to see in real time over a very short space of time that my body wants to be in this. It is responding very, very quickly, and I've always seen when my body responds really quickly, it's like it always wants to be in that space where it's a healthy weight.
Yeah.
You know, and for context for people who are listening as well, is that, you know, my family and my genetics, like all of my family are very slim.
Yeah.
And for me, sort of 65 kilos or hovering around that is a heavy weight for me.
Yeah.
You know, and I know that might not be for some people, but for me, 65 is, I know that's getting uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
And so sort of 60, 62 is around, I feel really good. My energy feels really good and I feel good in my skin.
Yeah.
And so I was creeping up to that 65. I was at the 65 and I just thought, well, I know I'm missing pieces of the puzzle. If I don't sort it out now, am I going to get higher than the 65?
You kind of want to stop it before you get really, really uncomfortable.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm going to start repeating some of your comments from the last few weeks. So I'm in the experimentation stage, looking for some staples. And I wanted to ask, the facts say that most people eat 5 to 10 meals on repeat. Do you reckon that's true?
Yes.
You found some good staples?
Yes, I found some good staples, and I would agree that before I did my consultation with you, that I was cycling the same meals.
Yeah.
And it was just some elements of some of those meals that were not serving me. Mm. And I can see that now.
Yeah.
And so I can also see one of the biggest downloads for me was the amount of protein that I should be eating. And it makes me laugh because when we did that last reel about university eats, and you said, what's the biggest thing that you've learned? And I'm like, well, it's the protein early in the morning. And you were like, I was eating nearly enough. I wasn't eating nearly enough. And so the fact that wasn't even 2 months ago, and I thought that I knew that I was eating enough in the morning, but I clearly wasn't.
I actually, to give you a little insight, I have a woman who I'm hopefully going to start working with this week, and she's like, I know all the things. I've been told this, I've been told that, and I'm eating lots of protein. I've been told to eat lots of protein before, and it's just too much, it's too filling. And when she actually sent me her current food diary, it was full of lots of beans, legumes, again, hummus that we're told is really high protein, and it's really not. Mm-hmm. And all those pulses can be really, really hard on our stomach, make you feel bloated. Yep. And the actual protein you can absorb from them is very, very minimal. Mm-hmm. So it's not only the amount of protein, but the sources.
Yes.
Which is very interesting.
Yeah. And I, in my mind, I just was visualizing. I wasn't actually seeing the nutritional content of some of these things to actually know, well, yes, you are having the 30 grams in the morning. That is a good way to start. I was having 15 and I thought that was heaps.
Yeah.
and so when you said that, I think my eyes just went really wide because I thought I had it wrong. I wasn't eating nearly enough in the morning.
And it's not about eating less.
No.
Hey.
Absolutely not.
No.
So I am eating more with your program. Mm-hmm. And I still feel great. So I don't feel overfull at all, but I definitely feel content after every meal that I've got. And I don't feel drawn to snacks anymore. And I think that's one of the big things, is that it just feels so simple.
Yeah.
It just feels so simple. I'm not kind of looking around for something, to fill the gap because I've got a bit of hunger on. There was a little bit of fluctuation in sort of energy
to start with. Did we talk about gut bugs in your consultation?
No.
You know what can be really interesting is as you switch over, because we'll get into more detail in a minute, but because you had a relative amount of carbohydrates when we added it up throughout the day that turn to glucose in your bloodstream and have to be processed by the liver. So carbohydrates and sugar, they all add to that glucose load if we're not moving heaps, which is why when you dial down the exercise in the winter, it can become an issue.
Yep.
And your body can't burn fat if you keep giving it carbohydrates and sugar that have to be burnt first. What's really interesting is that carbohydrates and sugar feed a certain type of gut bug called firmicutes. And the joke is that firmicutes don't make you cute.
Oh,
because what happens is
who named them that?
I know. So they so when your firmicutes are raging, and they're a bug that can cause a lot of issues for people like Candida and thrush.
Oh yes.
Yep. So when people eat a lot of sugar, they get that more regularly. But what's interesting is when they start to die off, when you starve them, you focus on proteins and fats and healthy greens and things rather than processed. Not that you're eating super processed carbohydrates, but
there were a few in there.
Yes, there were a few in there.
Let's be honest.
Yeah. So when you starve them, you stop feeding the firmicutes. They start to die off, and they start to actually give you quite horrible symptoms sometimes because they don't want to die off.
Yeah.
They want to stay there. They want to be fed.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting is when you change the way you eat, they die off. They don't absolutely disappear, but they're dormant. And so that's why the snack cravings and things, after a while, your energy fluctuates a little bit, and then that's why the cravings can stop. One aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been fascinating, and I think I had always had the belief as well that if you were eating lots of protein and you were trying to reduce your carbohydrates, that fruit was off the menu, and so was anything that felt a little bit fresh. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And
it's
but
like
besides
keto,
vegetables,
it's the kind of dirty keto.
Yes, and I think
rhetoric,
and I always had that belief that that's what it was going to require to try something like that, and so I was very put off by that because I love, having fresh things in my diet,
especially where we live in Central Otago,
especially fruit and just something that feels fresh. So I had never realised, I did not know what a high protein snack that Greek yogurt with some berries and cinnamon is, and that for me, that ticks the box.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, if I can have that, then I'm good to go.
Berries and Paula, let's do so one of the dear we tangent, your favourite snack that has been taking Instagram by storm.
Oh, I did not like it.
In my inbox, anyway. Greek yogurt, passion fruit.
Yes.
And grated dark chocolate.
Yes.
Game changer.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It has been amazing. Yeah. So I have been buying the Greek yogurt that Amy recommends because this is
one of the questions quickly. I've noticed a huge difference in Greek yogurt.
Yes. So
crazy.
This has been another big learning for me, is that I thought that within a reasonable amount that the sugar and the protein elements of Greek yogurts would be in the ballpark, pretty similar, but they are not at all.
Oh no,
at all. And so,
are you talking about all unflavoured?
All unflavoured.
Yeah,
all unflavoured.
Still quite interesting.
Still quite a big range,
and often the ones that are labelled high protein in the biggest letters.
Yes,
not often the best.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you said one of the things I've got written down here is I've become a label detective.
Yeah. Yeah, I have.
And I think that's really interesting because a lot of people buy things just because they listen to the message on the front of the packet.
Yeah.
So would you, without getting too obsessed or controlled, would you advise people to turn things around?
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is the thing, is that it depends on your intention for doing it. So in diet culture, when I would look at labels, when I was counting calories, completely different mindset and completely different space than the reason that I'm checking labels now.
to learn, to know.
Like I'm getting curious about the ingredients. You know, is there anything that's hidden in here?
So that's the other thing that we looked at, wasn't it? So when you stack up the number of ingredients that you eat in a day,
yes,
even when you're having the odd few bits of processed, most people wouldn't consider what you're eating processed, to be fair.
No.
Bagel?
Yep, half bagel.
What else? What else do we have on the list? Can't get them all now.
What do we have on the list?
It wasn't really too bad, but I remember stacking it up to soup mixes.
Yeah, so I was adding a king soup mix to some of my chicken and vegetable soups to kind of bulk it up a little bit, and yeah, I think that was probably one of the big ones.
You've so most people eat over 100 ingredients in a day, so you were probably better than that, but you've also made a really interesting comment. Add whatever you generally add to food, I find, to bulk it up, to make it go further, to save yourself money, is generally what is causing you to not be able to lose weight. Genuinely. And it's I had an interview the other day with a lady who you know, and there's going to be an article coming out. The Otago Daily Times, which is exciting. And she was like, everything we eat is hugely about budget, right? So it's lots of kind of big meals that go really far. And what I quite enjoy is flipping that rhetoric on its head, like you've mentioned, which I'll get to in a second, is how little of the good stuff do you actually have to eat to sustain a fit?
You took the words out of my mouth. You took the words out of my mouth. And I think that there is a real belief that unless, because I had it, even when I knew it was wrong, it was still there, that you needed some bulky carbohydrates to fill you up.
That feeling in your stomach, fullness and bloating.
But were we ever questioning, do we want to be filled right up? Like, do we want, because to me, filled right up means filled to the brim.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I completely agree with you there, is I am eating more than I was before, but it's very, very good quality food, and
possibly a different level of satisfaction, isn't it?
Oh,
you've been reading my book every night, which we will get to.
I have.
But so the way carbohydrates hit your bloodstream, it's very instant, very filling straight away, and then it dips off.
Yeah.
So, and the way you're eating now, it's a lot more kind of consistent. So you don't get that quick sugary carbohydrate dopamine hit, and I'm really full and my stomach's, you know,
it's just constant, consistent energy. But when I say that I'm eating more, this was part of my problem, is I was sometimes having breakfast, sometimes not. So I would have a coffee, and then I'd have a nibble on whatever was around at lunchtime, and then I would eat in the evening and probably eat the bulk of my meal in the evening, whereas now it's the opposite. So so when I say I'm eating more, it's because I'm eating more regularly during the day, and I'm cutting out those little pockets of where I was snacking, which is like, snack food is expensive.
It's so expensive.
It's ridiculously expensive. And, you know, the things that I'm eating now, I feel like I'm spending less on food.
That's the quote I was going to ask you next. I'm spending less because I'm so clear on what my needs are for the week versus airy-fairy shopping.
Yes.
I thought that was so interesting because that is one of the biggest questions I get asked, or the biggest, I suppose, pain points. People go, I know it's going to be expensive. And
compared to what?
Yeah.
You know, that's one of my big things, is compared to what? Because if you don't have your health, if you are feeling uncomfortable in your body all day, when you get changed, when you're out in public, you know, when you've had a meal, like, what's that worth?
What's the daily feeling of feeling happy in your own body?
Yeah.
And the other thing, getting a bit deeper here, but when people go, my eating is all about budget, and it's like, it might be about budget now, but you're shortening your lifespan and your health span.
Mm-hmm.
So actually choosing the lower quality foods right now is going to make you, it's going to make you moody.
Yeah.
It's going to tank your energy levels.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to feel as good and as confident just walking around in daily life, like you said. And then honestly, are you going to be able to play with your kids in 10 years' time or your grandkids in 20 years' time if you've currently got high cholesterol, bordering type 2 diabetes and a few other issues to boot?
Yes. And I think when you look at something like this and say, well, it's going to be expensive, and maybe the choices that you do choose to make with your protein choices, some of my protein choices are pricey, but I still don't actually notice a difference
overall
in what we're spending in the supermarket because I'm not going out to eat. Not going out to eat. The other thing is that I don't drink alcohol really anymore. And so, when you look at food as being expensive, it's like, well, how much are you feeling comfortable spending on booze in your supermarket shop?
Yeah.
Like, how comfortable are you spending money on snack food in your supermarket shop? On
paying
ice cream, on chocolate, on all of these other things. And if you were to add all of those up and remove them from your trolley, and then spend that money on better quality protein, then you'd be surprised. I think.
And I reckon most people would, and you've hit on a good point there. One of my biggest costs would, without a doubt, full honesty, be wine.
Yeah.
Genuinely. Yeah. And so this is a plan that works even if you still drink wine.
Yes.
You are worried.
It absolutely does.
But you make a really good point. And for most people, it's not even the wine or beer. It's the, the chocolate bar on the way home from the supermarket, the snacks after lunch when they're hungry. It's the takeaway once a week, always with rice, naan bread, extras, bits and pieces. I had one client in Queenstown who was like, "Oh, are you joking? Of course we're saving money," because they were having a curry and a Domino's every week.
Yeah.
And it's not that you can't have takeaway ever, but it's just realising how that makes you feel and like working out whether you want to.
Yes.
I suppose.
Yes.
And you're completely right that most people who go, "Oh, that's going to be expensive," still eating out in cafes.
Yep.
Not planning their lunch, so they're going and getting it. So they're paying for a sandwich that someone else has made them.
And I tend to feel like when people say it's expensive or it's going to be expensive, is that they haven't experienced the upside of what they're going to feel like when they're on the program.
So you're a smart woman.
Yeah. You know what I mean? When you
don't know what you don't know.
No, you don't know what you don't know. And so all you're thinking, well, how much is this going to cost me? But actually, the question that you should be asking yourself is, what's it costing me not to do this? And how good might I feel on this? Like, people can choose to work with you for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, well, 3 weeks will give you a huge indication of how you're going to feel eating this way. And potentially the way that you feel on that is massively going to outweigh to you any additional expense that you might find. But I've not found that to be the case for us. I haven't found it to be more expensive.
You're the best case study. So it's handy having one of your friends do your programs. Right. So a few other, we've got lots to cover off as normal. I am just going to jump to, because I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, and this is only a week and a half ago, as we've spoken about, it's really not about the scales, but 1.8 kgs down, had a look for curiosity's sake. How long would that be?
I want to say that was about 10 days or 2 weeks.
Wowza. And you're not.
So it's been 3 weeks since
you're not someone who's excessively overweight, so it's not just dropping off because it.
No. And that's why I wanted to say for context, like that's from 65 down to 62 and a half, because it's.
You're 62 and a half now.
Yeah, because I think that is worth sharing, because as a percentage drop, that was very speedy.
Yeah.
I was really not expecting that at all.
Yeah.
And like I said, my intention for going on there wasn't, I better be losing every day, and I better be, because that wasn't my intention for doing it. But out of curiosity's sake, when I can look at what I've eaten in a day, or over a week and over 3 weeks. And bear in mind, during those 3 weeks, I was at a dinner party.
That's my next point.
Yeah, and I had 1 or 2 glasses of wine then.
Yeah. So tell me, because this is a question, and I think a lot of people get flummoxed and think that they're never going to be able to eat out or enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
So one of your comments was, had a dinner party, everything served was so delish, back to it today, feeling really good.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be every single day.
No.
Religiously, you don't have to say no to dinner parties.
No.
Plus your friends are such amazing foodies. I was
Yeah.
jealous about it.
Yes. Yeah, it was incredible. And I felt great about eating all that food. And, if I really wanted something, if there was something that was being served up, or if I was out for dinner and I really wanted something on the menu, no matter what it was, I would get it if I really wanted it. But I think why the program has been so good is because some of the shifts that I've made, I wasn't even necessarily enjoying those things that much.
In the first place.
So when I took them out, it wasn't like, oh, I'm really going to miss those. Oh, I'm never going to be able to eat those again. It was like, if I had really enjoyed those, then I would find a way to work that back into my, into my weekly shop. But I haven't missed a lot of those things. So it hasn't been an issue.
That's awesome.
Yeah, hasn't been an issue.
Tell me about, was it Steph's Aleppo chilies?
Oh my
in
gosh.
butter for your eggs?
Oh my gosh.
I feel like we're going to have to put a link in the show
Yeah,
notes
you will.
because I haven't got them yet.
You will. So my gorgeous friend Steph Pierce, so she used to run a cafe in Roxburgh called Local on Friday. And she is an incredible chef. Yeah. She's just amazing. And so she used to be an egg chef as well. So she obviously did a lot of work with eggs in particular. So you want an egg cooked by Steph. It's amazing. And she served...
Egg chef?
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't know that was a thing.
So, yeah. Well, I didn't know it was a thing until I actually she's got an ebook for sale that you could maybe also put the link in called Damn Good Eggs. And it's all about how to cook the perfect egg, every single egg, whether it's poached, fried, all the rest. But she made this delicious concoction on the Monday morning after we'd had the dinner party. And she made the perfect poached eggs, and then she put some Aleppo chili butter on the top. And so she cooked the chilies and the butter until it was kind of boiling, like, and then just let it caramelized. But the Aleppo chilies have it's really hard to describe the flavour, but it's quite sweet, like quite a sweet chili. And so it's a very different taste to a regular chili.
Like a real sharp chili.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. And so she poured those over the eggs, and it was everything was phenomenal, but that chili butter just blew my mind. Yeah. Yeah, it was just a flavour sensation. So, yeah, if you can find Aleppo chilies, then I highly recommend giving that a go.
Yeah, so I'll have to look them up and add them to the notes.
Yeah.
I could do a deep dive down herbs and spices.
Oh, yes.
Because that's really interesting, and what chili actually does. There's some studies out there on the thermogenic effects of food. Yes. So actually hot spices like chili, black pepper, cayenne pepper can actually, it's quite interesting. Like they actually kind of heat up your body throughout the digestion process. I'm going to absolutely butcher it without the notes in front of me. Yeah. But it's actually really interesting. Adding chili, paprika, a different context for each one, black pepper and turmeric, things like that can all be really beneficial. Yeah. And cinnamon. Yes. Adding cinnamon to things. So I learned a bit about cinnamon in your resource that you gave me in your little booklet. Yeah. So that's the next question. I've read over your booklet most nights as a reminder to pick up anything I've missed. Yes. Yeah. So I have loved the resource that you gave. And in fact, when I read it, I said to you,
this has got to be more expensive. I can't do for this because it's
so bloody underpriced.
And it just has everything in it, but not too much. So not information that isn't important.
Yeah.
It's just narrowed down. So I think it's 30 pages maybe.
Yeah, 24 to 30
24 to 30
for the
pages.
program.
But
plus the weekly plans.
Yeah. So it's just simple.
Yeah.
It is very, very simple. It's like when you're in the supermarket,
there's a shopping list.
There's a shopping list. Like if you go for these things and any combination of these things, you basically can't go wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so like
the recipe book.
The recipe book has been amazing. Okay. So we have tried quite a few things from the recipe book, and like you said about herbs and spices and seasonings, that has been a really amazing way to elevate whatever it is that we're cooking or give it a really different taste. You know, so cooking chicken with a Moroccan seasoning tastes very, very different to cooking chicken with an Italian seasoning. So it's like, using the seasonings to really mix things up.
Yeah.
Mix things
the flavours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's never boring.
Oh, good. Never boring. Before we get onto the fun dessert, which is going to be a hyper dessert, which is Alex's shopping list.
Sorry, Alex.
We're breaking the mic with our laughter. Sorry, Alex. But I've got one really, really awesome quote from you. And I was chatting to a couple of women yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about why or why not you would choose to start a new program or try something different. And I think a lot of people have tried the doctor, tried a naturopath, tried a PT, and everything's just missing the mark slightly when it comes to weight loss or fat loss and the science.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have a really good PT and some good workouts, but the food isn't quite right. You might have a naturopath with some amazing supplement recommendations.
Yeah.
But what you said is when you get to 40 and you still haven't figured it out, it's exhausting trying to think of something else, especially when you thought the last thing you tried worked.
Yes. Yeah. And one of the hardest areas of my life, I think, to work my way through, both in mindset and in knowledge, has been food. So I have a history in my family of family members really struggling with a healthy relationship with food.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was passed on to me at a very early age, is that I constantly heard, don't eat that, you'll get fat. You've already had enough to eat. You know, you'll get fat around your middle, you'll get this, you'll get that.
Yeah.
And so I developed a real fear of food.
Yeah.
You know, like fear wasn't a good thing. It was the thing that was out to get you. It was out to like disrail you. It was out. Do you know what I mean?
Like not nourishing.
Yeah, it wasn't nourishing, and it wasn't something that I had a really light feeling around. It was always just this fear.
Heavy.
Yeah. And that has led to, a lifetime of, at times disordered eating, but always just a really negative relationship with food. And when you couple that with a lack of understanding about what fuels your body the right way, then it's just a minefield. It's a shit show. It really is. And so working with you, I think, has just given me, if I could nail it down to one word, it would just be relief and calm. Just relief and calm over just having that knowledge that I know is going to be sustainable because I understand why it works.
I love that.
Yeah.
And a little bit more freedom, actually.
Yeah, so much more freedom. And I think when I know that my body is getting what it needs and that I understand why, then it feels like something that I want to maintain. you know, I want to maintain that because I want to feel this good all the time.
Yeah.
But getting back,
it's not something that you're like, oh, I'll get through this. I'll get through another week of it.
No. And, you know, it took a lot of work on my mindset to get my mindset to a place where it was, I was trying to love my body. Like I'm trying to nourish it and take care of it, not punish it and not criticize it. And so I had done a lot of mindset work to get myself to that point.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of that. And I think that is a massive part of this journey. But, you know, for a lot of women out there, like I know that there will be women who are where I was, and you're just jumping from one thing to another and just clutching and trying things on, and some things might work for the short term. But then if you don't understand why, then you end up just reverting back to maybe old habits or trying something new. So then you're trying something new and you're trying something new. And if you're not settling into a long-term pattern with that, then you're inevitably going to fail. Because if you don't look at it as being a long-term thing, then it's like, well, I'm doing this until I get to this kgs, or I'm doing this
body for life, not for holiday.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's just a roller coaster that's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's so exhausting. And so I think I can see why people look at programs or look at people that are, you know, nutritionists and look at, you know, come by this, and they're like, another one. And so I guess that's why, like, I would never ever put my name to something or recommend that somebody do a program unless I truly believed that it was going to be game changing for them.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I have felt this to be so different. And both because I understand the why, but also because you sat with me and we went through everything that I was eating. You know, on a weekly basis. You were like, but in a really nurturing way.
You were quite scared.
I was scared because I was like, oh my God, what's she going to do? But it was in a way where it's like, I want to help you figure this out. And I can help you.
You were surprised when you were telling me things even.
Yeah.
So you were, as we went through it together.
Yeah.
You were like,
yeah, exactly. There were a lot of realizations while we were doing that. And so I think you have nailed it, because it is you're asking the right questions. It's very, very personalized, and you are giving, I guess, the foundations for long-term health. And you're explaining why. You're explaining why.
That is the goal.
You know, and you're like, and there's so many things that I loved in your resource as well, that you're like, do not be scared of fruit. Do not be scared of, I know that you might think that this is going to mean that you're never able to have this again. That's not true.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think a lot of the things that to me I have heard of or I've seen in other programs that have been very restrictive or have been very, you're basically not going to be able to ever eat this again. I think you're very realistic that, you know, this is a base of knowledge, and when you understand that, then you
feels like you've got the secret.
You've got yeah. And you know, if you're out and you're out on holiday and you want to enjoy all the buffets or whatever, even though it will make you feel sick, and you'll realise that, it's like, well, I know the path back and I know the why.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if I feel rubbish, I kind of know why I feel rubbish, and I know what I can tweak.
Yeah.
So
I'm lost for words. But so to clarify what we did before I get lost.
Yes.
We did a full consultation, didn't we?
Yes.
Like hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Which you really enjoyed.
Yes.
And then the 3-week body reset transformation program is what you've got at home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just 3 weeks.
Just 3 weeks.
Good,
just 3 weeks. And what I loved about that is I thought, this is all I need.
Yeah.
This is all I need. And in fact, I asked Amy, I said, why would anyone need any more than the 3-week one? Because I know you do 6 weeks and 12 weeks.
Yeah.
But you had a really good point. You said, well, those ones include accountability and support
so they
over that
message support for
yeah,
a longer duration.
Which absolutely that makes sense. And I love how you have divided it into those 3 packages and said, well, you know, if you kind of feel like you're sort of not too far away from being on track, then maybe the 3-week one will be okay for you.
Yeah.
If you've kind of got 5 to 10 kgs to lose,
like
and you've really got some things to shift, then there may be a longer term. And I really like that, because it's not going to be one size fits all to go through the program, because some people will need more support than others. And you know, I feel like it was just a few quite key parts of information I was missing. Yeah. You know, but I'm quite good at keeping myself accountable.
You've just taken it and run with it.
Yeah, so the 3-week one was fine for me, but I absolutely would recommend doing the personal consultation, because I think that is where the juice is.
And that's where I probably can be a bit of a mirror to your current situation and help you realise things. But I have to say, since you and a few other ladies all started around the same time, it has blown my mind, the progress. Yeah. Like, so there was a lady who started similar time to you, who went to Christchurch for a week and was like, oh dear God, how am I going to start this? This is going to be a disaster. And she's lost 3.5 kilos in 10 days. Which I was like, that's quite alarming. Yeah. But it's often, some of it will be water weight and things like that. But she definitely didn't think that she would have made that much change, because she thought she was eating heaps. Yes. She thought she was eating heaps. Yeah. And it's just switching that up. And it's, so that will likely plateau, but probably keep going in the right direction. I'm really proud of her. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. It's fascinating. This is the thing. She was 72 kilos, now 68. So it's still not, it's not people with excessive amounts of weight to lose. Yeah. It's really interesting. Yeah, it's been amazing. Like, the only way I can kind of describe it is it just feels like it melted off. Really? I was like, it has melted like the butter on your eggs. Exactly. So, yeah, it has been a very seamless process. Okay, cool. And you haven't done any, in case anyone's wondering, any crazy exercise changes? Absolutely not. In fact, I have been, so for the last 2 weeks, it's been mainly walking, and that's it. And that hasn't even been every day. Yeah. So just walking, and because I was thinking today when I saw the weight staring at me, my hand weight staring at me from the lounge, I thought, it's been at least a week since I've used these. And I would normally you need to get back about the exercise part. Yeah, I know. But a good point that it works for that exercise. And this is, I think this is a good point, because I'm just, like, in full honesty, like, that is, I haven't been that great with exercise. It really just has been walking, but still having that, having those changes. Yeah. Having those changes has been great. And so that's, been amazing. Love it. I love it. Yeah. I love it too. Good. So we don't keep you guys too much longer, we're going to move on to the juicy dessert of Alex's shopping list. To give you some context, Alex is Paula's lovely husband. And he is from the States. This is Alex's shopping list. Syrup, Haribo, pepperoni, milk, pizza sauce, chalk centre cookie. And then there were a couple of additions. Cookie cake from Ice Cream Freezer. Biscoff spread. It is not unusual to get a list like that from my husband, that I'll just say, look, whatever you want from the supermarket, text it to me. Yeah. So then I can just look at the text, So following on from Anne last week, what are the cultural differences that you know that you notice he's carrying with him? It's really interesting. It has been a challenge at times, because Alex is very tall. He's he's broad, so, and he also does a lot of exercise. Yeah. And so he can
he can eat all that stuff.
He can eat
Certain stuff. I don't know his tummy's that happy with it, but he can eat all that stuff. But I think it has, definitely the cultural differences have been quite enormous.
Yeah.
So, and Alex and I are going to the States at the end of this month.
Yeah.
And so it will be really interesting for me going back to the States. And, I'm all about Whole Foods, and I'm like, just leave me at Whole Foods, come back and get me in an hour. Whole Foods. And there are amazing options there too, but fast food is very, very cheap and accessible. So I'll send you some photos of what his hometown, looks like in terms of how close together the fast food outlets are and how many of them that there are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really, that was mind blowing to me, was just the accessibility and how cheap it was. And, with the cost of living over there as well, it's affecting them too, that it is a very easy and very cheap way for people to feed their families. And
that's what I brought up in the interview the other day, like actual, rather than food deserts, so a lack of good food, there's actually a lot of places now in America, case in point, but we also talked about South Auckland, that are like food swamps.
Yep.
It's called actually a swamp of like, it's so much cheaper sometimes and easier to get your hands on fried chicken.
Yes.
Or some form of takeaway or fast food than it is to go and do a supermarket shop.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that makes me sad.
You only have to look at the Domino's special that they do where you can get a $5 pizza.
Yeah.
For lunch. I mean, it's very quick, it's very easy, it's cheap. People think it's going to fill them up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's, but I do. I mean, when you start thinking about what your priorities are, this is something that I have really enjoyed about, eating a more whole food way, and also because I love really integrating into my community and supporting people in the community, is people will often willingly swap with you for things. So if you have got lots of, something in your garden, then people will swap you for whatever they've got in their garden. So we live on the export cherry orchard. And so in summertime, like, I would often say to people, like,
swap cherries.
Do you want to swap some, a bucket of export cherries for, like, there was a lady that lives down our road that grows the most amazing raspberries, and she grows them to sell. So she grows a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so we swapped like 3 or 4 times, and we just went there and she basically said, go for your life. And so we froze a bunch of raspberries, which are now going in my Greek yogurt.
How good.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's
so
and
so it's, thinking about some of these things where maybe you could go together with friends for a co-op. So there's some friends of mine in Cromwell, and we get organic Bostock's chicken once every now and then. And so, to get it wholesale, you have to order a certain amount at a time, and it comes frozen. So that's why there's a group of us that do it. But then we get wholesale prices.
That is such a good hack.
And it's the same with like Ceres Organics.
Yeah.
Is that you can get an account with them, a wholesale account, if you spend a certain amount. So if you've got a group together, then
game changer.
Yeah. And so it's just when you start getting really clever
that's
about
very long-term thinking, isn't it?
Yeah.
So rather than going, this is the cheapest option right now and it's going to fill me up, the $5 Domino's.
Yes.
It's breaking it all down and thinking, actually, how can I be clever about this and feed myself and my family for the next 3 months?
Yep. And it's, it's thinking about, well, who might I know that I could buy meat off? That's a farmer, or just get in touch with them and ask, like, or even just put something out there on Facebook and say, like, I'm looking to buy a quarter of a cow, or I'm looking to buy something. Does anybody know who I could talk to? And you'd be amazed how many, people just want to help.
Yeah.
And I think it also creates really beautiful networks within a community where if anything were to happen, you know, let's just say there was a big earthquake and the trucks couldn't get through, it's like you've got your networks of people.
There's actually quite a lot. We're very lucky. We are in Central Otago.
We are in Central Otago.
In the city.
But I think if you have your mind, if you have an intention to be clever about it,
to those sorts of
you
things.
know, and then there's lots of options to make it cheaper. Yeah.
I love that as a final note. I think should we call that a wrap?
Yeah.
I think we've covered heaps.
Yeah, we have. But it's, I guess as a final, I think, thing from me is, you know, we're always constantly learning and we're always constantly growing and we are always not always, but we will sometimes find ourselves in new chapters. You know, so I am in a new chapter of my life where I am nearing my mid-40s.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's new things for me to learn to support my hormones, and there's new things for me to learn about what exercise feels good and is good for my body, and the same, you know, with food.
That's actually a really good point. And I got a lot of questions from menopausal or perimenopausal women.
Yes. And I think that there is a massive belief out there that as you get older, the weight gets harder to shift. But now I know some of the things that you've taught me, I kind of get why. I kind of get why people struggle to shift it, because I think, well, I'm 43 and I managed to lose 2.5 in 3 weeks.
Oh, look at
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And so I think we've been led to believe that is our fate as we get older, that we don't have a choice and that just suck it up. That's what happens when you get older.
Yeah.
You know?
The menopause is horrific.
But
it's going to ruin your body.
Yeah. And I think coming from back to my coach background is that I always challenge beliefs that don't serve me, you know, or that do I actually want to believe that that's true? Is there evidence out there that is not accurate?
Yeah.
And you can actually, if you look for evidence out there that over 40s can thrive and that they can have amazing, like, healthy bodies and, you know, and not struggle with their weight, there is evidence galore out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what you focus on and go, well, then I'm missing something.
Yeah.
If other women can have that, then I'm missing something. So what is that? You know? And yeah, so I guess I wanted to share that because I'm sure there will be some women that think, oh, well, I'm just getting older now. I'm in menopause now. I've
had three in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. So
just the menopause.
Well, I would really encourage people to rethink that position. Yeah. You know, and
boom. On that note. Mic drop.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Keep the amazing feedback coming. And if you've got 2 seconds, if you could leave us a review, that would be epic. Mm-hmm. Look at that, 57 minutes. Paula, nailed it. Bye, guys.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We really appreciate it. And if you would like the free tips, information, podcasts, and health hacks to keep coming, please do share this with a friend or take 2 seconds to leave us a review. You can get more free tips and information over on our Food for Thought blog on the website and also on Instagram at Amy's Fitness and Nutrition.